Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller returns as host, and we have a return guest, Holly Jenkins, who is well known as a community activist and for a lot of things that we will talk about during our interview here. Holly has also run for office for Dakota County Commissioner and lost a close race to our longtime friend and now commissioner, former legislator, who?
Joe Atkins.
Joe Atkins.
Yeah. We had a great campaign on both ends. I thought that we were both running for the same office, but not against each other, because I think that we do have a good relationship.
But it was a campaign on this level. There was no dirt, there was no mudslinging. It was a positive campaign, which pretty much is the type of a person you are, having gotten to know you over a number of years. And taking it one step further, recognizing that I am long in the tooth, so long that the teeth are practically gone, we will, and we have from time to time, but we will in the future be having some people take on guest host chores, some very special people. One of those people who is going to guest host is former Supreme Court Judge Paul Anderson, and another individual who's going to be a guest host down the road is a woman named Holly Jenkins.
Thank you.
So,
yeah,
welcome,
no, that'll be terrific.
Welcome, Holly Jenkins, in a dual capacity.
Yeah, thank you.
So give us a little bit of background about yourself, your family, and then we'll talk about how you got involved.
Okay. I grew up in Wisconsin, Brookfield, Wisconsin, and I went to school in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and after I graduated there, I moved to Minnesota to go to grad school at the University of Minnesota.
And you graduated grad school, what, for the Carlson School?
It was the Carlson School of Management with an MBA in finance, and at the time I was working for Piper Jaffray with an ambition to head to Wall Street and be a financial analyst. I was and still am very interested in the stock market. And I met my future husband at Piper Jaffray, but I also took my first trip to the Boundary Waters while I was employed there, and it turns out to be a turning point in my life. I eventually turned paths and went down towards more of an environmental activist role and worked for nonprofits, and that's what's led me in some ways to where I am today.
And family-wise,
Jeff and I have been married for about just over 20 years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we have two high schoolers. My daughter Sarah is 17, she's a senior, and Sam is a sophomore, 16, at Eagan High School. So we'll be sending one off to college next year.
I was going to say, has she picked a college yet, or is she
She's got it narrowed down to 4. And so she's going to have a tough decision. They're all good schools, including the U of M. But I think she wants to get a little farther
very
away.
exciting time
Yeah.
in a young person's life is, and then hoping that you made the right choice. So that
I'm pretty darn proud of these two kids. So I think they're going to do it's going to be just incredible to watch them.
Does she have a career path?
She's going to be going into dietetics. She wants to become a dietitian, ideally for the Green Bay Packers. That's her dream job.
We have a team here in Eagan called the Vikings.
Yeah, we know about that. She would like to work for the Packers.
Maybe she has to give that a second thought.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where she ends up.
Dietitian's very important. In fact, I had my first ever visit with a dietitian about a month ago.
Okay.
And,
it is important.
Very important.
Yeah, and my daughter was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so it put nutrition in her life.
Oh, that certainly is.
Into a whole new category. And so that really helped to kind of define her next path in life, to be the importance of nutrition.
So for years now, you have been involved, particularly in the environmental area, but in the last few years into government itself. Mm-hmm. When you say that the boundary waters really changed your life, is when you see all that pristine and beautiful wilderness, and then you realize that there are people out there and companies out there that want to go in, and they don't want to destroy it, is what they say. Mm-hmm. They just want to do a little digging here and a little mining there and a little this and that. We have lost so much. Is that pretty much what motivated you?
It really is, because I, for many years, worked in an industry that helped to bring more people into the wilderness, because I personally realized what a valuable life benefit it is to have time in nature. And I wanted to bring as many other people there as I could. And so I did that for a number of years. I worked as an event coordinator, trying to introduce more people to the wilderness and to the outdoors. A lot of people can't get to the boundary waters. And that's one of the reasons that we're so valuable to have places like Lebanon Hills right here in the Twin Cities. And then at one point I realized not just was the boundary waters that's somewhat at risk, but the character of Lebanon Hills was also being put at risk.
Lebanon Hills is a huge undeveloped area, which a major effort to develop was made 2 years ago, I think, started about 2 years ago. And you really were a leader of trying to keep that area pristine. And it met with moderate success. They wanted to put a 10-foot paved road through the middle of this gorgeous wilderness, and I can't imagine why. And there were planners, allegedly competent people, who were for that. And what were some of the other things?
That was probably the most controversial topic, was the fact that what had been decided was that Lebanon Hills was going to become the hub of their Greenway network. So the Greenway is a large regional bike network, and most of them are federally funded trails, so they turn into rather much bigger than just a winding recreation trail. They were going to come in and through Lebanon Hills, and that would be the hub. And when you say that I led the opposition, I think what I really tried to do was establish a nonprofit to get information out to people and tell them how to be part of this process. And that was really, I didn't know how people would react. I didn't know if...
In doing that, you learned a lot, though.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell us about the nonprofit and how you established it.
when I found out about this plan, this would be what I would call the second turning point in my life. The first was the Boundary Waters, and the second I happened to go to this open house, and they were talking about these plans, and the plans seemed to be relatively set in stone, and I was very aware that people did not know about this. And so I started to talk to residents and neighbors and people at my kids' school. They hadn't heard about it. They started calling their commissioners, and I just said, call them, let them know. But it just kept moving forward, and I couldn't quite figure out how this plan was moving forward when the public was opposed to it. And it's that whole process, the whole, public engagement process that intrigued me so that I had to keep digging into it. And that's really what brought me to where I am now. I'm a very much of an advocate for bringing the public back in the decision-making process. What happened with Lebanon Hills was a very negative. People felt horrible about it, and it was people against elected officials. It wasn't so much community members, and I thought that's not right. We have to do better.
The community really rose up as a result of your efforts, and those are some people who worked with you to create an awareness of what was going on. And in the ultimate, you did achieve a measure of success.
Well, we feel, there's been some definite silver linings that have come out of it. And first off is the fact that the Board of Commissioners, although they did still approve a plan with a paved trail end to end, whether or not that ever gets implemented, we don't know yet. It hasn't moved forward. The previous plan also had a trail in it that never was implemented. So there's no foregone conclusion that this will happen.
But this trail was more like a street going through it. I mean, 10-foot wide paved.
And they have reduced that down. They approved an 8-foot wide, which is a little bit better, but they've also made statements that are on public record showing that this will not be a federally funded trail, so that will also help keep it smaller than it was originally envisioned. They also, and I think this was the biggest, most significant change, was that this trail, if it's built, it will be for park visitors. It will not be part of that large greenway network. So it should prevent the park from becoming a thoroughfare or a shortcut for bicyclists. And we'll stay with this and just continue to follow as decisions are made to hopefully hold them accountable to that significant change that they approved.
And there was also some development of buildings that they were talking about. Is that going forward or not?
There's not so much in Lebanon Hills. I mean, they really are keeping that to a little bit smaller footprint development, which is in line with what people had weighed in on and said they would like to see very little extra development. One of the other positive things, and this is really what so many people weighed in on, saying that the park doesn't need, not only does it not need the trail, but it needs some tender loving care with its natural resources. The park is overrun with buckthorn. We're degrading our wildlife habitat there. The wetlands and the lakes were, starting to fill in with just become diminished with in their quality. And so the county has really stepped up a notch, and this is again probably the best thing that came out of that controversy, is that they've now established a natural resource department. They've been going after grants to do some restoration projects in the park. We want to again make sure that continues, and not just in a little section of the park. We'd like to see the entire park restored to its highest quality, held to higher standards for sustainable development. So if they are going to put any trails in, they should be using porous surfaces, environmentally friendly, so that water will soak through instead of runoff. Stop using chemicals on the lawn, instead plant pollinators and things like that. So we're going to keep pushing them in that direction.
That's a really important point, to use biodegradables that are not dangerous to children, animals, etc.
Yeah.
And they're available. They might even cost a little bit more, but it's worth it to preserve what we have.
Well,
we're spoiled here in Eagan because we have so many parks, large and small, and so many lakes, large and small. And we have Holland Lake, and we have right next to Lebanon Hills, that huge area there. But in the 20 years that I live here, and it has to be the same way, we have seen a lot of encroachments. We had 2 golf courses that are gone, and there's housing there.
Yeah.
Now, we are getting an influx from the Vikings that are going to have a fantastic facility. That land wasn't in use anyway. So, you know, that's another thing that we can talk about. And
yeah, and I would add to that you know, we're going to always see development, but just as the zone areas for development, shouldn't we possibly be zoning some areas for preservation? Just simply not only preserving parklands, but making sure then that those parklands aren't overdeveloped, so that we really are creating genuine pockets of nature close to home. It would benefit our community, it would benefit our finances, because those amenities that they build are very expensive. And Lebanon Hills is part of the Greater Metropolitan Regional Park System. On an annual basis, the expenses there have reached, they're over $100 million a year. We don't want to see our parks become so expensive that people have to start paying to get in there, that people can't simply enjoy nature.
we phase ourselves out of enjoying them because of the expenses involved. And as I was saying, Eagan has so much to offer in that regard. I walk the dog twice a day. I try to go to a different park or lake
nice.
or something
Good
like
for you.
that
That's
every
wonderful.
day.
Yep.
And for my peace of mind and for hers as well. And
And do you
she
feel
seems-
better after you walk in?
Absolutely.
Yep, it's-
Walking is a great exercise.
It is.
And it is very important. So we sort of segued
Yep.
from Lebanon Hills into government. And let's follow that path.
You know, as I was learning the whole Lebanon Hills and through the process, here's what you do. You provide your input to the county board. They take that input and you hope, are representing what they're hearing from the communities. And yet, according to the Star Tribune, 97% of the people who weighed in on that plan were not in favor of it, and they approved it anyway. And I sat back and I couldn't figure out how that could happen. How in a democracy, when these individuals that we elect to represent us are doing something very unrepresentative-like. And so how does that process work? And I just dug into it, and bottom line that I came away with is that at the county level in particular, decisions are made on a daily basis that influence our day-to-day, our quality of life, and people aren't really any part of the decision-making process. And while
Nor are they aware of it many times.
Right. And so to bring more light to this level of government, to open up more dialogue between residents and the elected county board, to me, will strengthen our community. It will have a better understanding of decisions that are being made. It has to start with greater transparency, and so that's kind of been the starting point for my efforts, is to increase transparency. Once people can have a better idea of what the county is doing and the decisions that are being made, they will have a better opportunity to become engaged, to communicate with their board members. But the board has to take ownership of increasing transparency.
And there have been some changes in the board this year, some new faces, and so at some point you decided to run for office, and you ran for a county commissioner spot.
Yeah.
First time out, you did very well.
Thank you.
You didn't win, but in the long run, Access to Democracy won, because you're going to get to enjoy your energy
Well,
even more.
Thank you.
And that will be exciting for all of us.
yeah, that running was quite an experience, and I would never say I'd regret it. It was all consuming, but the best part about it to me was just sharing this message with other people about the importance of county government, and people responded to it. They do care.
And you did that.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a knock on my door one day, and you were there.
Yeah.
And you really walked through several pairs of shoes, as I understand it.
Yes, it's a lot of work, but it's rewarding, and it was terrific talking with so many people.
And one of the things that you advocated And I'm glad to see that Joe Atkins who was a people's legislator, even when he was in the legislature, has picked up on and followed. Joe puts out a newsletter every 2 or 3 weeks on many different topics to everybody in his district.
Yeah.
Not only that, he has decided to visit every area, and every 2 weeks he's in another area where he has an open house and takes questions and talks about issues and problems. Something I've been trying to get our congressperson to do
Yeah.
for 2 years now, or a year and a half, which he refuses to do, doesn't meet with the people, doesn't have open meetings. That's not the way I envision a politician and an elected representative should behave.
All right.
And Joe is just the antithesis of that, as you would have been. And now you started a couple of organizations while you were doing this. So tell us where did you get the information on how to start a 501(c)(3)?
It was a learn as you go process. There is an organization, Minnesota Council for Nonprofits, and so I referred to their website a number of times, and really just talking with other people. And it just all, a lot of volunteers are helping, a lot of other people are involved, and we just have learned as we go.
Form the organization.
Right.
Name of?
This is Wilderness in the City.
Wilderness in the City.
Yes.
Now, you also were involved with a publication, were you not?
Well, we put out a quarterly newsletter to continue to keep
publication?
people. Yes, and we put that out every quarter, again, to keep people informed on issues that are happening, not just at Lebanon Hills, but the larger picture, because of it influences. It's involved with the Met Council as well as legislative issues, and so we want to keep people informed as these decisions are being made. I see that as being, really a responsibility that the county should be doing on many issues. I do appreciate that Joe has reached out, and I'm aware that I went to his listening session recently in Eagan, the newsletter as well. I think those are great starting points, and there are other issues though at the county, such as their legislative wish list, and they put in a list to the legislature every year. They have a lobbyist at the Capitol working on some of these issues, but those issues never get broadcast to the public, or the public doesn't have an opportunity to weigh in. And I think that's important, that if the county is working so diligently to influence things that are happening at the state, we want to make sure that people are aware of what they're advocating for.
And we happen to have a really good county in terms of taxes. They have maintained it with a low tax base. In terms of services, we have terrific services. In terms of October snow, if it was a little heavier, October snow, I'm not used to that yet.
Yeah.
Trucks would have been out today. They were ready to go. The salt is ready to go, as the city of Eagan is. And these are all pluses for us, fortunate people who get the opportunity to live here. And you do live in Eagan.
Yep.
So.
And I do think Dakota County is a great place. We chose to live here, after going through the metro area and looking for where's the right place to raise our family. And we did select Eagan and Dakota County. It was its quality versus quantity that we really appreciated. I wouldn't say that, I don't have anything so negative to say, other than I do think that there's room for improvement if they were providing more opportunity for open discussion, open forums with
people. Don't normally attend meetings, city council meetings, unless they have an axe to grind or they have an application of some sort. It's the same with the county commissioners.
Well, if you have genuine just opportunities for discussion, I think that the commissioners will have a better sense of the people that they're representing, so that when they do go to their meetings, and again, I'll refer back to Lebanon Hills. I don't think that park plan ever would have moved as far along as it had if the commissioners had more open dialogue, two-way discussions with the general public.
And there are a lot of other areas in the county. Dakota County happens to be a very large county in terms of some of the counties in Minnesota, which is a very large state.
And very diverse.
I mean, 350 miles to the Canadian border or something like that, as opposed to a state like Rhode Island, where if you close your door and walk across the street, you may be in another state. But so there are different problems, and modernization is a problem. Technology is a problem. Maintaining the quality of life, which is really important,
Right,
and
absolutely.
which is really one of the selling points of Minnesota. These things are very important. So,
And and I've been pushing for the community engagement part of it and the greater transparency. Just, research has shown that when decisions are made, when the public is making the decisions along with people and decisions aren't being made for people, that is a happier community. So it can even get better. And why would we not strive for being the best we can be?
That's a great slogan, with people rather than for people.
And some decisions, of course, you can't be part of everything. But like I said, I think that they would have a better sense of, they would be more accountable and more responsive to people when people know what they're doing and have ongoing communication opportunities with their board members. Just like when Joe came and we did the open discussions at Lebanon. He actually hosted his event at Lebanon Hills, and I hope he will continue to do those. I hope that the other commissioners will start attending some of these as well. He's only one of 7, and we'd like to see all of them.
But his track record is such that he does involve himself with the people, and we've seen it in the legislature. He actually passed more bills when he was in the legislature than any other legislator. Why? Because he could cross the aisle and talk to people, as opposed to this partisanship that we have in government now that is really frightening.
Yeah,
and,
it is. You have to be able to talk to folks who have different perspectives, different visions. That's the only way to move things forward with some level of contentment on everybody.
So that's the Holly Jenkins story, to be continued. And we know a lot about Holly. It'll be a little bit different for her sitting in this chair when she does some guest hosting.
I look forward to it.
Which is on the horizon. But we're looking forward to that as well.
Thank you.
And I just got the 1-minute signal from Mary.
All right.
And when you sit here, you'll be able to see into the control room, and they pretty much keep us on the straight and narrow.
That's good. Somebody has to do that.
Somebody has, especially in my case. There's a reason why they call me a curmudgeon.
All right. I'll learn a lot more about that.
Yeah. So anything you want to close with?
I just encourage people to stay involved at not only the state and national level, but pay attention to what's happening locally, because things start down here and they move up. So you want to make sure that the folks who are here at the local level are representing your values.
Well, Holly Jenkins, we thank you very much. And
thank you.
In addition to that, welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
See.